Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Life Start Sit Hour. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, joined by the one, the only, the great one, Chris Allen himself. We're here to break down all the start sit questions you have for the next hour. That's right, basically what the title says. How about them apples? Chris, how's it going?
Man, I'm doing well after seeing a lot of the overreactions, underreactions, just everyone freaking out after week one. Let's see if we can try and give people some sense of how best to approach week two and see if we can gauge our own reactions after everything that happened over the last week or so of action. So, no, happy to dive into it, man.
We'll continue to update everyone on the sort of, actives and inactives or just, I guess, Schefter rap sheet notes as they continue to roll in. Didn't get anything too big, Chris. We are hearing that Jawan Jennings should be playing through his questionable tag, but without Brock Purdy out there, it's not exactly a situation that we're going to be dying to get to. And otherwise, man, again, I think we're pretty much, playing things as they lie. So we'll continue to get into that. I would say the bigger intrigue is just a couple of these weather situations, but as we were talking about before, Chris, really probably isn't something to even worry about too much, specifically in Miami and Nashville. You, my friend, the weather expert here in these streets, not too worried.
No, I think we were talking earlier about potential rain down in Miami, but similar to the Jacksonville game for last week, those types of conditions lend themselves to elements where you can have a potential thunderstorm. And just like we saw with Jacksonville, the South Florida or just the Florida weather can have those types of conditions where you can wind up with a weather delay. So even if things were to get to that point, my assumption will be we'll get similar types of conditions so that we might just see both players or both teams wind up walking into the locker room. Everything has to wait until the conditions improve, and then the action resumes as it was beforehand. So not too concerned there. And then same thing for Nashville or for Nissan Stadium for the Titans. Very low chance of precipitation. So even if things do wind up raining, not enough to impact any of the stuff that you'll see on the field. So if things change, I'll try and get a tweet out before kickoff. But for right now, just play it as it is.
As always, good information too at rotogrinders.com/weather/NFL. Kevin Roth always keeping us well and prepared with the weather. I did lie, Chris. There is one obviously outstanding questionable tag that we need to keep an eye on. Probably won't get a final verdict today, though, and that is Brock Bowers playing in the Monday night game for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, we did get word from head coach Pete Carroll saying Bowers practiced on Saturday, which was true. He was in a limited fashion, and then said he looked terrific and is expecting to play Monday night against the Chargers. Now, there's been some sort of, I guess, idea that Pete is not always the most forthcoming, I should say, about his players' injury statuses.
Yeah.
That said, Coach Speak Index, shout out. They do a great job of tracking all this stuff. Pete still had a 70% reliability rating when it did come to his injury coach speak. So I would say if you have a great top 10, top 11 other option. That does not include Juwan Johnson. That does not include Harold Fannin. I would be okay with starting them over Bowers. Ideally, you picked up Michael Mayer this week and you can just play whichever one, ends up being the active starter out there. But for right now, I would cautiously lean towards Bowers playing. Again, I hope you have Mayer. What say you, Chris?
I would say Mayer is probably the deepest I would go in terms of the players off the waiver wire that you would start. I know we might get some questions about him later, but we're not doing Jake Tonjes, right? We're not trying to toss him in there even after he made the miracle catch at the back end of last week's divisional matchup between the two. It was cool to see, but I'm not assuming even with the Mac Jones under center and now having the backup behind George Kittle playing in there, I'm not going that deep. But those types of replacements, I think those are the guys that I would potentially want to toss in over it. Let's assuming if we get any sort of indication between now and let's say midway through Sunday that Brock Bowers isn't going to be available.
Definitely would guys have those Bowers lineups ready to go around 12:50 Eastern time. Jay Glazer usually picks two or three of the more important nuggets to go out there. In my opinion, he is the best insider in the game. So if we do hear from Jay Glazer, I certainly would be taking it as the gospel. So with that, let's get into the start and sits. Appreciate you guys already filling up the chat. We are going to start from the earliest and get through as many of these bad boys as we can. So from Tom, hey guys, need some help on the Njoku versus Fannin coin flip half point PPR. I am still going Team Njoku here, Chris. As much as Fannin did have a great week one, it didn't come at the expense of Njoku. Okay, it was more of a big slot role for Fannin here. Maybe the answer is again yes. I do think the Ravens are going to do everything in their power like they usually do to stop the run, and then force teams into this comeback mode, pass heavy game script. But I'm still giving Njoku the benefit of the doubt for at least another week.
Yeah, and I think the positive thing between both of those Cleveland Browns tight ends is that this is a 12 personnel offense. I mean, they ran snaps with both tight ends on the field at the third or fourth highest rate on in week one. So it's not like Fannin is eating into Njoku's workload, at least from a pass game standpoint, because they're both out on the field. They're both running routes. So while we do have some concerns about how long it's going to be Joe Flacco under center, from an opportunity standpoint, I think either of those guys would be fine to start. But for right now, just seeing the rookie get out there and flash as that big slot role, to your point, Ian, I would say I'd go Fannin for week two, but let's see how things shake out in weeks 3 and 4.
All right. From Zach, Adunze or Pickens in the flex full PPR. He is also starting CD if that matters. I will say our alleged expert rankers over at fantasylife.com. You can find full rankings over there, by the way. We are all team Pickens over Adunze here. Chris, are you with us, or are you just, an outsider hater, man?
No, I would say I'm still on the Pickens train, even though I would say that there's a heavy bias. I mean, for folks, I'll let you guys have a peek behind the curtain. Out of the rankers, how many of y'all are actually Cowboys fans? I think it's what you, Friedman, and
Oh,
Dwayne. So
man.
I'm just saying that, I mean, the numbers do clearly show that there's a potential Dallas bias potentially in the ranks for fantasy life. But again, you didn't hear it from me, folks. But I would say, though, even though after Pickens didn't have, I would say, the strongest showing in week one. Didn't really need to have that. I mean, for in some cases, but I would say comparing Dak Prescott versus Caleb Williams throwing their wide receiver the ball, I'll go with Dak Prescott at least for week two, and let's see how things change over the coming weeks. Hopefully, Caleb Williams can get in better sync with Ben Johnson pulling the strings there.
And that kind of is my tiebreaker. Again, I know Rome had the nice touchdown at the end of the obviously Bears week one loss there to the Vikings. That was a great play design from Ben Johnson, but we just didn't exactly see him using that witchcraft that we just grew so used to seeing in the Detroit days. Caleb obviously a good first drive, but even then it's kind of weird where it's like once they got off the scripted plays, things fell apart. I mean, half the scripted plays end up being really cool Caleb Williams scrambles in the first place. So again, not the best start. Meanwhile, obviously the Cowboys also took that week one L, but Dak Prescott looked very, very good out there. Obviously, without some of those CeeDee Lamb drops, could have been a different final score. And Pickens, to Chris's point, didn't put up the biggest numbers in the world. I hear you there. That said, was still getting those end zone targets, was getting those deep ball targets that, again, made us want to draft him in the first place. So, Giants pass rush, no joke. I do think their cornerback room is a bit more exploitable, though. So, God forbid we can have that actually looking pretty good Cowboys O-line hold up a little bit. I think this passing game could have a pretty big day. All right, from the only Joker. What's up, man? Kenneth Walker, RJ Harvey, or Jalen Warren in half point PPR. What's your lean on this, Chris? I'm checking my ranks right now.
I'm tossing out Walker immediately just because of the split with Sharps. Harvey, I think, is Harvey or Warren are the two that I would look at. Just looking at just between those two, and seeing it for Warren specifically. I mean, having to go up against Seattle's defense, I know that. I mean, last week Christian McCaffrey did have like a pretty solid outing against them from a rushing and receiving perspective. So I'd lean in that general direction just because Harvey still has to deal with J.K. Dobbins. So I think I lean Warren here, but I think it's close between him and Harvey.
I also lean Warren. I have Warren one spot ahead of Kenneth Walker. Harvey's kind of in that similar RB3 tier. So none of these guys are specific, must start options. I think it's a very fair question. But yeah, give me Jalen Warren for right now. It could get ugly in Pittsburgh once they do eventually probably get obviously Caleb Johnson a little bit more
Hopefully.
involved, but hopefully, maybe, yeah, when, who knows? But I do think that right now it's a two-headed committee and a Steelers offense that actually impressed a little bit. So Jalen Warren, give me the edge there. From Craig Jordan, again, Kenneth Walker or Jalen Warren. We are going to be leaning towards Jalen, particularly in this case, full PPR. From Jerome Thomas, let's go. Here's the question of the hour, Chris. Is Tunges, however the heck you say his name, a start over Cole Kmet? What league is actually? I can relate a little bit. I'm in some 14-team league, and I was appalled at some of the options on the waiver wire. I got to start Dalton Schultz in this one league. It just makes me hate myself at this point. So Tunges over Cole Kmet, Chris. What say you?
I can't do it. I would say I can't. Well, I can't start Tanjas after 3 targets last week and having to try and see how well the 49ers offense is going to operate with Mac Jones under center, potentially no Trent Williams also for the 49ers. I'm hard pressed to get behind an ancillary option for the 49ers with that many things going in the wrong direction for them. So I'm going to go Komet.
If we did have Brock Purdy under center, I'd be a little bit more okay with it, but I'm with you right now. With Mac Jones, go ahead and give me Kmet, who, guys, I know it's unfortunate because we spent all offseason talking about Colson Loveland, but it really was Cole Kmet with the 68% routes in week one, Loveland down there 48%. Kmet, really cool one-handed catch down the seam, man. That dude does not suck at football as much as some of these Loveland truthers out there would make you believe. From Noel Pitts, maybe related to Kyle Pitts, say what's up. Full point PPR, Pearsall, Waddle, Charbonnet, or Tillman in the flex. I think I would still lean Pearsall here, Chris. He really is the one healthy guy that I think we're going to see Shanahan go out of the way to get the ball to. Yes, Jennings is going to probably be playing out there, but a little bit banged up. And again, just trusting more Pearsall. Waddle also got a little bit banged up last week. And dude, if I have anything close like this, I just want the guy not playing for the Dolphins right now. Okay. And then Charbonnet and Tillman a little bit lower. So team Pearsall.
Yeah, Team Pearsall. You could make the case for a guy like Tillman going up against the Ravens secondary after their outing against the Bills and seeing Keon Coleman perform so well in a similar role to what Tillman will likely play. But I would say from that standpoint, I think it's still Pearsall, just given the amount of fewer options for Mac Jones and also where Pearsall will likely run his routes from. So I think it's Pearsall, but I think guys like Tillman, maybe Charbonnet, assuming he gets a similar workload against the Steelers, who, I mean, Breece Hall looked excellent against them last week. So so I can see those types of guys. I think Waddle's pretty much the easier one that I would want to have out of that group.
I am with you there. Bo Nix or Michael Penix also from Noel. I think it's Bo Nix pretty easily. It was a rough week one, but again, Penix also has a situation where his wide receiver's a little bit banged up. Presumably it will be out there playing, which is good. Going up against that Vikings defense though, man. Brian Flores, not an easy one to be cracking out there. So go ahead and give us Bo Nix. From Jason Wright, go Hawkeyes. Good to see you guys complete some forward passes yesterday. Kenneth Walker or Jalen Waddle in half PPR. This one's closer. I know what I just said, Chris. Man, I think I lean Waddle, but this is a toss-up. Let me see exactly where I had him. What say you?
I think it's Waddle for me, but it is also fairly close. I think the only thing that still gives me at least some hope for Jalen Waddle is the fact that no Christian Gonzalez this week for the Patriots, again, with his injury. And then also the fact that he was running about 20% of his routes from the slot, which we saw just this past week when the Patriots played the Raiders. Jacoby Myers around a 60% slot rate. He went absolutely nuts. It was like 10 for 97, if I'm remembering correctly. So while I think Tyreek Hill is still going to be the featured wide receiver one for the Dolphins, having a scenario where Waddle even continues to get some of those looks and hopefully he's not on the ground writhing in pain from a wrist injury or something like that, like we saw in week one, doesn't happen again. But I would say from a volumetric standpoint, Waddle he has the edge for me, even in half PPR versus Walker, where we don't know what those touches are going to look like between him and Charbonnet.
You have both these guys ranked outside my top 70 flex options. That said, Waddle is just a little bit ahead. So we are going team Waddle there. Hopefully, again, this Dolphins offense proves to be a little bit better than that joke that we saw in week one. From Matt, Darnell Mooney or Jawan Jennings full PPR. For the record, Mooney is good to go along with Drake London. They practice in full on Friday and do not have a game status ahead of that Sunday night national championship rematch between Michael Penix and JJ McCarthy. So I think I'm leaning Darnell Mooney here, Chris. Again, both guys dealing with these shoulder issues. It seems like Mooney was certainly practicing at a bit more of a full clip throughout this week, had, the extra week to get ready after they did play him in week one. And just, again, if we had Brock Purdy out there, that could be different. But hey, we don't right now. So I would lean Darnell Mooney.
I think that's where how much in sync are the quarterbacks with those wide receivers. And Penix even talked about Mooney's shoulder injury, which had him sidelined throughout most of training camp and preseason. He talked about getting in extra reps with Mooney over the weekends. So I would say those two, that rapport is probably more intact than whatever we might be able to project between Mac Jones and Jawan Jennings. So I think it's Mooney for me here.
I will say too, man, I know they didn't get the final result. They were watching Penix still have his team in a position to send it to OT without any of his top wide receivers out there, and really did look good down the stretch. From Jeremy, morning, boys. Good morning, Jeremy. Would you drop Dylan Sampson for Bayshall Tootin?
No.
Leaning no, especially if you need any amount of help. Like if you could see yourself flexing Dylan Sampson at any point in the next 2-3 weeks, I would lean towards keeping Sampson. Tootin is one of the top handcuffs right now, but standalone value is still very much a pipe dream. Is that kind of where you were at, Chris?
Yeah, and I get the fact that with Quinshon Judkins, like him signing, he's going to be active today. I'm assuming they're going to try and do some sort of ramp up period for him to assume the RB1 role. I don't think at any point that Samson is going to completely go away. The number of targets that he got in week one, there's utility there to that offense that's going to need to continue to have playmakers for Joe Flacco. So I'm not seeing Jerome Ford. Let's assume that Samson's still in there, or let's say even if it becomes a three-headed backfield, Samson's role is still vital to how this Browns offense is going to continue to move the ball. So I think I would still hold on to Samson for right now. Tootin, solid handcuff at this point, but I still think Samson has some value.
With you on that one. Again, one of the best handcuffs potentially out there right now. So if you do have a second quarterback, God forbid a second DST or kicker, I certainly would still try to get Tootin on the squad. From Tony, who to start between J.K. Dobbins or Travion Henderson? I think I lean a little bit towards Travion. I will say, guys, it wasn't the week one we were hoping for, but again, full PPR, which he did not give us, exact notes of, so it could change a little bit. But he still finished as, I think, the RB25 just because he caught 6 passes, which does seem like something we could see more often than not. So I have Travion as my RB22, Dobbins as my RB27, and I can say, Chris, with no Cowboy bias in this one, that is consensus among the rankers. Are you also Team Travion?
Yeah, Team Travion, but that's like the Ohio State bias for us, brother. But
Oh,
still, I would say that especially for Henderson, I'm betting on the come. And we played. Shoot, Ian, last time I saw you, we were playing poker in a house up in Canton just a few weeks ago. But I would say that for Henderson, I'm looking at this at a situation where Mike Vrabel. They just lost a pretty tough matchup against the Raiders in like what was a heartbreaking loss for them. There's no way that they're going to try and come into this like a divisional matchup against the Dolphins and Vrabel want to put out his, I would say, a running back in Ramondre Stevenson that is serviceable but not as effective as what Henderson can be. So I'm betting on the come here and seeing in the sense that I'm thinking it's going to be Henderson taking over this backfield in week 2, and that we continue to see that majority of the work go in Henderson's way for the rest of the season.
and we did get a report, I forget who it was from, basically saying that they could see it shifting even more towards Henderson in week 2, which would make a lot of sense. Again,
Yeah, was that Reese? I think
obviously
that was saying that.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
So again, the fact that was hopefully Travion's floor game should still have us feeling pretty good as the season moves on. The only joker back with us, Miami weather. Again, as we kind of said, top of the show, not too worried about it. What about Stephon Diggs this week, though, in half PPR? I will say, Chris, didn't quite get the full-time role from Diggs in week 1. Was still out there for 70% of the routes, though, and expecting that to move on up. So looking at the overall rankings where I guess have him aligned with, Diggs is my wide receiver 41. He is behind guys like Jalen Waddle, Khalil Shakur, Keenan Allen, Keon Coleman. He is ahead of guys, though, like Michael Pittman, Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Rashid Shaheed. So it's a tier. If you want to go with the Browns guys ahead of Diggs, I wouldn't call you crazy or anything like that. But he's a wide receiver 4 who, again, I don't think he should be solely leaning on, but there should be better days ahead for that Drake May-led Patriots attack.
Yeah, and let's also remember that this is a 31, 32-year-old wide receiver coming off of a mid-ish season ACL tear. So a 60 to 70% route rate in week 1 should be reasonable. We should understand that that's the type of plan that they want to have for a guy that at least they see having as a large part of their offense for just this regular season. So that ramp up period, I can understand. And while I know, at least for myself specifically, that folks are looking to players like Kayshon Boutte as a guy you might want to toss in your flex, let's see if we get a little bit more route participation and maybe a couple more targets heading in the way of Stephon Diggs for week 2.
Charbonnet or Isaiah Pacheco in full PPR. I think I got to go with Zach Charbonnet here, Chris.
Yeah.
Again, it was disgusting to see what we had out of Kansas City last week. It was a situation where we had Kareem Hunt leading the way in terms of short yardage rush attempts, and then also the longer down and distance pass down work. So basically the two things we want most for fantasy were unfortunately going to Hunt over Pacheco. So Rashard Smith also a little bit involved. So I wouldn't doubt that, they get Pacheco more involved than we necessarily saw, but it's also against that Eagles defense that with Jalen Carter should be really tough to run the ball on. So you with me, Zach Charbonnet here, Chris?
And for folks that don't typically use this type of stuff or don't have that, was it tier 2 subscription, I believe, go and check out the utilization report. I mean, the work that Dwayne's done in terms of characterizing usage, that will highlight some of the things that you would need in order to essentially figure out from a usage standpoint what we're looking at for running backs. And Pacheco's UR score of 47, which if folks don't understand what that means, it blends together how they're used, the context that they're used in, and also the results. I mean, that's really not what you want for even a guy that was drafted in the fifth, sixth round for a lot of folks. That so I'm looking at hopefully we'll see a shift and maybe Kareem Hunt gets phased out at some point during the year because he is one of those older running backs. But for right now, there's no way that I could trust Pacheco's usage against the Eagles' rush defense, where Charbonnet, we just saw him pop off just this past week. I can't do it.
Speaking of Pacheco, Richie Pacheco wants to know Njoku or Juwan Johnson. We are in consensus here with the ranks. No Buckeyes, no Cowboys involved here. It is David Njoku over Juwan Johnson. Great week one for Juwan. Literally finished as the tight end one. But again, go ahead and give us Njoku there. Adam, though, Chris, has a really compelling one. I have these guys 3 spots apart in my flex ranks.
Ooh.
For the flex, Travis Hunter or Tyler Warren in full point PPR. I have Hunter, again, 2 individual spots ahead of Tyler Warren. It is a tough matchup against the Broncos. I can see because of how, tough Patrick Surtain and company are on the outside that it actually ends up being more targets and receptions for Tyler Warren. But I don't know, Chris. I would like to see Daniel Jones have even 60% of the performance he had in week 1 against a real defense. Obviously didn't have that going for him against Miami. And hey, he played well with the cards he was dealt. I'm not trying to penalize the dude for having a great week 1, but yeah. Broncos, a very different story. We are hearing that Hunter could be playing a little bit more defense. I don't know if that's necessarily going to come, without as much offense, though. Absolute shootout potential all over the Bengals-Jaguars game. I'm Team Hunter here. What say you?
Yeah, and that's where I would look more just even at the game environments relative to both those players. So for Travis Hunter, we're looking at a scenario where he could be in a game that goes over its total, well into the 50s in terms of projected point total for this game between my Bengals. And then for Tyler Warren, we just saw the Denver Broncos essentially limit and erase a lot of the production for the Titans. And not saying that the pass catchers are on the same level or anything along those lines. It's just how limiting the Broncos defense can be. So I'm looking at those two guys as they're in Hunter's in a situation that I would want to invest in or have as many pieces or parts of that particular matchup versus Tyler Warren. I'm limiting my exposure to that particular game if I can help it. So in that particular case, yeah, I think it's Travis Hunter for me.
Travis Hunter indeed for the squad. We also had a question about Devontae Adams versus George Pickens. This is another consensus one. I don't think we need to spend too much time on. All of our rankers have Devontae in the top 20. Meanwhile, I am the highest one on George Pickens as my wide receiver 25. So going to be rolling there for those dudes. Let's see. From Ned, is starting your RB1 or RB2 against your defense a no-no as it takes away from run defense totals? It's not ideal, Chris, but at the same time, I don't know if my RB2 is kind of bad example because no one's starting the Titans defense. But if you have a legit top 15 running back there, you're starting them no matter what. So I really don't think that this is something you should be overly paying attention to. If it is, again, a situation where you have, your RB25 or your RB26, and that's enough of a tiebreaker, but that's really what it should be, Chris. A tiebreaker, nothing more.
Yeah, and for running backs going up against defenses, because it's not like DFS, we're trying to maximize our totals for both positions. But for running backs, how many times are you really expecting your running back to provide points to your defense in terms of sacks, fumbles, not even sacks, but fumbles and those types of things? So it's fairly limited in that regard. Now, a quarterback against your opposing defense, that's where I would say that is probably the cardinal sin, or that's a massive no-no, because you would want that quarterback to fail in sacks, fumbles, interceptions, things of that nature, so that your defense can get point total. So running back against defense, I'm not as concerned about.
From Joshua. Hey, guys. Good morning. Good morning to you, Joshua, as well. Full PPR in the flex. Kayshon Boutte versus Dolphins, Cedric Tillman versus Baltimore, or Kenneth Walker versus Steelers. If you would have told me before week 1 how close this was going to be in week 2, I would have been very, very sad. So, and I'm still kind of sad about it, honestly. But I lean Kenneth Walker, Chris. But if you wanted to go Cedric Tillman there, especially in full PPR, I do not think you are necessarily crazy. What do you think?
Yeah, I think to be honest with you, in full PPR on the flex, I would almost take out Walker as the guy completely and look at Booty, who had he led the team in targets. I think he just had one more target than Diggs and also maybe two more targets than Pop Douglas. So I do like his matchup against Miami, just seeing how well Michael Pittman, Tyler Warren, even Josh Downs to a small degree was able to perform against Miami secondary. So I would say those guys, and then also Cedric Tillman. We were talking earlier about how poorly the Ravens secondary performed against the Colts. Now, of course, when you have a quarterback like Josh Allen running around, it would make things difficult for any coverage unit to make sense of what's going on. But if, as well as Tillman played just last week against Cincinnati, I could also make the case for them. So honestly, I think it's either of the two wide receivers. For me, I'm gonna go with Booty just because of the matchup against Miami. But I can also see a scenario where Tillman would also be at least a viable option in the flex for this week.
We are going to be leaning towards Walker, and if
Walker?
my eyesight is not betraying me, I believe that is what we have going on here. So, Kenneth Walker, and again, shout out to our friends over at Xfinity for making this happen. And can't say enough, guys, that again, as much as we are adding nuance, and yeah, the rankings are meant to be more of a guide than complete gospel. But if we can't get to your question, again, start sit tool over at fantasylife.com. It's just taking our rankings and go ahead and basically applying them to your specific question. Tangled in the waiver wire. I know that's a tough place to be, man. Flex, PPR, Ibuka, or ETN. Man, I have Ibuka as my 39th ranked player overall. I have ETN as my 43rd. So leaning Ibuka, Chris, that one is tough though. I would just say as much as ETN did look good, and the Jaguars offense as a whole, they did get the absolute nut run out matchup against the Panthers. Now they're maybe getting the second best one against the Bengals here. Your Bengals, so not to throw stones or anything, but I would just like to see it a little bit more. Meanwhile, Ibuka, man, he's just cemented in this number 2 role as long as Chris Godwin's going to be sidelined. 8 to 10 targets for a player that obviously is quite talented. So I lean Ibuka, but again, very, very close. ETN is the first running back after that group of wide receivers for me.
And I would say my only counter or my only pushback on going up against the Bengals defense, they were able to perform somewhat well against the Browns last week from a run defense standpoint. It was just the secondary that still continues to be an issue, and that's taking years off of my life. But I would say I lean towards Ibuka, but everyone just remember, and most folks have been probably tracking the injury report, probably no Tristan Wirfs for Baker Mayfield this week, going against that Texans pass rush that did short circuit a lot of what the Rams were trying to do just this past week. So while no Chris Godwin again for week 2, Ibuka, I would say there is a potential limit to his ceiling. I don't know if we can project 2 touchdown catches for the rookie in week 2, but I'd still go for him over ETN.
Bengals defense, man. Again, they got Hendrickson. They added Al Golden. If you guys caught that Notre Dame game last night, you can see how, again, one defensive coordinator really can make a heck of a difference. So hopefully needle moving up in the right direction there for Cincy. From Fenny, though, he is wondering about ETN or Henderson. His RB2 in full PPR. At that point, Chris, I would be going with ETN.
Yes, that is. Yeah, I would go there, even though I am projecting a more voluminous role for Henderson this week over Ramondre Stevenson. That's still more of a gut feel than what we can glean from the projections and usage from last week. So I think it's still ETN.
From Joshua, full PPR, Juwan Johnson or Evan Ingram, or find a way to drop and add Hunter Henry. So Ingram is going to be playing out there. Obviously had the calf injury, but practicing full. He has no official game designation. So good news there. I think I'm not worried about Hunter Henry. I'm also kind of a Hunter Henry hater because I just can't get over the fact this dude hasn't had 700 yards in a season despite being in the NFL for freaking ever, Chris. I have Ingram as my tight end 11, Juwan as my tight end 13. That's fairly, I should say it's not fairly consistent. So a lot of the other rankers do have Juwan a little bit higher. I can see it. They're in the tier. Man, we know Ingram's going to be out there. I lean Ingram, Chris, but I can totally see going with Juwan. What say you?
I would say, first off, I'm not trying to find a way to drop either of those 2 for Hunter Henry. Let's toss that aside. I think there's enough usage between the 2 that you got on your roster that you don't need to make any moves from that standpoint to get Hunter Henry on your team. Between those 2, I think I still go with Evan Ingram there. It was good to see Juwan Johnson get double-digit targets last week, if I'm remembering correctly. But it's one of his better games. I think it's like the 3rd time in his entire career that he's had double-digit targets, but still didn't even crest the century mark from a yardage standpoint. So in full PPR, okay, I can understand it. But this is also, the Saints also had a game where Kellen Moore elected to have Spencer Rattler throw 46 freaking times, that's a choice. to be quite honest with you. So I think I'd still go Ingram for week 2.
Craig wants to know Devontae Adams, Calvin Ridley, Emeka Ibuka, Lab McConkey, or Cortland Sutton got to sit one in full PPR. I do think it is Ridley, unfortunately,
Yeah.
as much as I do remain high in the guy. I mean, those are 5 pretty freaking awesome options, man. So Ridley, even though I do think he is a playable, upside wide receiver 3, those other dudes are all, very arguably top 20 options. From Kevin, Rashid Shaheed, Jawan Johnson, or Harold Fannin, pick 2 in half PPR. I'm going with Shaheed, and then I don't love in a tiebreaker scenario playing 2 guys from the Saints
Same team.
offense.
Yeah.
So Shaheed and Fannin with me there.
Yeah, I was already leaning towards Fannin as the first guy off the list for me, and then between Shaheed and Johnson, again, I would need to see a second performance from Johnson where he does get that same level of utilization, because this was also in week 1. Remember, Johnson getting all of those targets. How many did Alvin Kamara have? 2. So I'm assuming there's going to be a little bit of a balancing act between the tight end and the running back that we know to be a PPR monster. So I'm not going to bet on Jawan Johnson seeing the same similar usage rate in week 2.
Royal Palm 8, Sutton or Pollard in full PPR. We are consensus team Pollard. Again, just 20 plus touches here. I know it wasn't the best performance from the Titans in week 1, but really is tough to be too upset about that. Michael Lopez, morning guys, need a high upside. JCM left me hanging. It shouldn't be doing so in future weeks though, so you should rest good about that. 12 team full PPR, already starting Neighbors, needs 2 between Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Ibuka, T-Mac, or Jacoby Myers. Tia, am I missing something there?
Thank you in advance.
Oh, okay, cool. I was like, who the hell is Tia? Okay.
Carrera?
I know, right? I'm definitely Ibuka. I'm leaning towards the Buckeyes here. Marv and Ibuka. T-Mac makes it interesting. If we knew Bowers was out, I would be fine going with Jacoby. But again, it's trending towards him playing. So I'm going to remove Myers from the equation. I'm going with the Buckeyes here, Chris. What say you?
Yeah, I think those are the 2. You could potentially make a case for Jacoby Myers there, since he did run a ton of his routes from the slot this last week. Like I was saying earlier, around a 60% slot rate in week 1. So he does have the easiest of the matchups, especially going up against the Chargers defense. So I'd kind of lean there. I'm tentatively concerned for Teteroa McMillan in week 2 after seeing Bryce Young turn into the early season Bryce Young from 2024. So I do have some general concerns about the Panthers passing game. So I would say I'll stick to the Ohio State guys for now, and then let's see how things look in week 3.
By the way, again, all those wide receivers are between our wide receiver 18 and 26 in the consensus rank. So really don't think there is too much of a way to go wrong. Famous last words, though, until we see exactly how it can go wrong in a few short hours. Tony, just want to say good morning. Good luck to everyone in fake football today. You too, man. Appreciate you hanging out. From Radiacle. A little early for me to get that name right. Have Bowers as my only tight end. Do I pick up Schultz, Okonkwo, or Mayer? Appreciate the help. Definitely Michael Mayer. Again, this is best case for you, okay? If Bowers is unfortunately not going to play, and we found out Monday night, no problem at all. You just slide in Michael Mayer into that spot. If we do see Brock Bowers play, then okay, have fun on the bench for a week. Michael Mayer, send him back out to the waiver wire pastures there on Tuesday. From Fins Fan, good morning. Start Dak or Fields? Man, I am definitely leaning towards Justin Fields. Again, just with the rushing upside that we already knew was there. And honestly, even if week 1 hadn't gone as well as it had, I would still be Fields there. We treated him as that the entire offseason. And, Chris, again, the fact that we do have that passing upsides for Fields really can go a long way now and potentially him reaching those top 5 ceilings. So I'm team Fields here over Dak. You on the same page?
Yeah, 12 carries for Fields, along with that high-end efficiency that we saw from him as a passer. I have to give it to him at this point. While Dak in that matchup against the Giants, we're already looking at CeeDee Lamb as a top-end wide receiver, George Pickens as a guy to potentially break out against the Giants secondary. All of those guys can contribute and pull Dak into one of those top 6 type performances that we know Dak has in his range of outcomes. But I'll just take the explosiveness from a rushing standpoint. I'll take that. I'll hit up that Konami code one more time and take Fields here.
Next up, we have It's Okay to Laugh. It is okay to laugh. Ricky Pearsall or Devonta Smith in full point PPR. It's close. I do wonder, Chris, do you think Dallas Goedert being out is enough of a tiebreaker here for Devonta Smith? Because again, it can be tough in Philly when we got those 3 mouths to feed. Not the easiest matchup in the world against the Chiefs. That said, Herbie and company certainly had plenty of success in week 1. And hey, the Eagles were able to put up big passing numbers against them all the way back in February. So I'm leaning towards Devonta Smith here, but it is close. What say you?
I think there were four, no, I think 6 or 7 games last season were without Dallas Goddard, and 3 to 4 games in 2023 without Dallas Goddard. In the majority of those games, both Devonta Smith and AJ Brown crested 20-25% target share in each of them. And because Devonta Smith typically runs his routes from the slot, we did see a number of explosives going to Quentin Johnston from the Chargers against that Kansas City secondary. So Smith will run a lot of those routes where, I mean, you could see the Chiefs defense getting exploited. So I do see where having Devonta Smith, having Jalen Hurts versus Ricky Pearsall with Mac Jones, I do think Smith is the better option between those two.
X Brain Burst. This is a tough one, Chris, because we are doing SFB 15 scoring, which I still, for the life of me, can barely understand. So choose two between Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Jalen Waddle, or Khalil Shakir. Dude, I would trust the projections, honestly. Again, trying to wrap my mind around this scoring. I love Scott, and I appreciate everything that Scott Fishbowl does. But just, spending 99% of our week on normal scoring and then trying to get into this very is difficult. I lean the wide receivers, Chris, but again, maybe I'm missing something with the tight end scoring here.
Yeah, because it's 2.5 or 1.5 points per reception for tight ends, if I'm remembering correctly. So that's why guys like George Kittle and all, because I drafted George Kittle, I think in the second round or something like that when I did the live draft down in Cincinnati. Shout out to the good folks down there at the Fowling House. That was an awesome live draft. But either way, I would say that so Hunter Henry and his usage, that one sticks out. Jonnu Smith, I'm not as high on, even though he did wind up getting that rushing touchdown, the rushing usage, because that's what Arthur Smith loves to do for us. So I'm looking at Hunter Henry and Khalil Shakir as the two there. Jalen Waddle, we already talked about our, let's say, general lack of enthusiasm for a guy like Waddle. So I'd say it's Hunter Henry and Shakir there for me.
We'll say with our Xfinity Start Sit tool, we do have Scott Fishbowl scoring in there, and it is actually leaning a little bit towards the wide receiver. So certainly a very close one. And again, we'll remind you guys to go ahead and check that out. I've already updated my ranks a few times this morning, especially as you guys continue to ask some good, tough, hard-hitting questions. From SnowJ66, full PPR, ETN, Ridley, or Tillman. We are going to be Team ETN in that situation. ARAPP, half-point PPR, need 2 of Ridley, Travion, Mason, Coleman, and Quentin Johnston with a T. Need 2. I think he's got it in the right order. Man, half point though. Mason is in such a good spot. I could see him finding his way in the end zone once or twice. So I'm definitely going with Calvin Ridley. I'm not going Keon or QJ. It is very close between Henderson and Mason. I think I lean Mason, Chris. What say you?
Yeah, I think that's where knowing or seeing the usage for Jordan Mason in week 1 and doing that 55-45 split between him and Aaron Jones, we can project some better usage for Jordan Mason. And also the matchup for the Vikings sets up to be a little bit better than their face off against the Bears. So since they do get to face the Falcons this week, I do like Jordan Mason a bit more. Whereas Travion Henderson, we can believe there are going to be better days ahead of him. But like we were saying earlier, this is all on a projection. This is more on a, hey, we're thinking that Mike Vrabel, they can't start the season 0-2. They have to use their best players. So that's obviously Travion Henderson. So that's more of a projection than anything else. So I would say we know Jordan Mason's getting used. We do know that Ridley's going to get the primary volume there. So I think it's those two.
Heather hit us with 4 quick questions, so I'm going to quickly go through these. Fields or Kyler? We are leaning towards Fields there. Kyler's right next to him in the top 8, so can't go too wrong. Needs 2, and then wide receiver and 1 flex. Yes, T. Higgins. Yes, Cortland Sutton, and then I would go Emeka Ibuka over your other ones. I would go Devontae Adams over Ibuka and T-Mac, and then finally Tyreek, T-Mac, or Hunter, and you need 2. I think you have it in the correct order, Tyreek and T-Mac. So good stuff. Thank you for hanging out. Eddie Flex, need a 1. Jordan Mason, Roma Dunze, RJ Harvey, Dylan Sampson, or Jameson Williams. This is
interesting. Okay.
I know we were heavy on JMO last week. Chris didn't exactly work out for us. Now, I don't think we're going to see a Lions offense look that bad in the future. That said, wasn't great, man. And it was pretty unimaginative. And some of those things like play action rate, pre-snap shift motion that we associate with some of the top offenses, oftentimes Ben Johnson's, were not quite there for the new edition of the Lions. So again, especially if this is half point versus full point, I lean Jordan Mason here. But if you are looking for more of a boom, maybe you only have a 40% chance of winning, for whatever app or site you're playing on, then I think it'd be JMO. So Mason or JMO versus me, floor versus ceiling. I lean Jordan Mason. How about you?
That's where if you came out of TNF and everything was still 0-0, I would say Jordan Mason is the guy. If you're behind, somebody didn't meet their projections or something along those lines, and you want to try and swing for the fences, then it's Jameson Williams. Because compare the Detroit Lions going up against the Packers pass rush versus the Bears pass rush. I'm going to guess that Jared Goff is going to have maybe an extra beat or two to operate and fling the ball downfield a bit more than what he had in their season opener. So I think Jordan Mason for now, but if you need the ceiling, go with Jameson Williams.
Yeah, gotta love those Thursday night scores just staring at us all freaking weekend. Matthew Golden, how many points did he end up giving us? A whopping 1.5. Could have been north of 20 if Jordan Love could just beat Jordan Love when he's throwing to Matthew Golden instead of just everyone else, but I digress. From Tony, Henderson or Dobbins, we are full consensus at Team Fantasy Life, Henderson over Dobbins. It is close though, so again, if you did want to go Dobbins, wouldn't call you a psycho, but yeah, we are leaning towards Travion. From Montgomery Bell, hashtag free Duke Johnson, you're freaking right, man. Full PPR, Swift, Waddle, or Keenan. I do think it's DeAndre Swift here, Chris. As much as, again, like people, I feel like everyone's just hating on Swift for things that very much exist with other running backs. I mean, that usage, you cannot deny it, man. He had all of it. So revenge game going on against the Lions. Like, come on, Ben Johnson must have been saving all the good stuff for this week 2 matchup here. So I'm DeAndre Swift. Again, not someone who we have ranked as a top 15 rusher, but versus Waddle and Keenan, I'm DeAndre. How about you?
Yeah, I think it's either between Swift or Keenan, because we did see Keenan have the second most targets amongst the Chargers passing game in week 1. Swift now will also have, I believe Roschon Johnson is supposed to be back for this game, so his high-end usage from week 1 might not be as much as we would hope in week 2, but I think it's between either of those two guys. And I do like that revenge game narrative approach, or at least that storyline for Swift, so I think it's him with Keenan a close second.
Love me a good revenge game storyline. From Andrew, deciding between Nix and Penix, 6-point passing touchdowns and projected to lose. It gets closer with the 6-point. I'm still giving Nix a benefit of the doubt for at least another week, though. Chris, are you with me?
Yeah, I guess if you're projected to lose, though, because I think that's the context, I'm looking for a potential shootout between those two. And with the Broncos defense being so stifling, I'm just wondering how Indianapolis and specifically Indiana Jones, do we really have to give him that freaking nickname? I'm ranting. Yeah, it's taken away from my childhood. You can't give, like, Daniel Jones is not the same as Harrison Ford, man. We're not doing that. The man was Han Solo. Like, we can't give him that same nickname. But either way, I would say I'm hard pressed to believe that the Colts can create a shootout against Denver's defense than whatever Penix can do against the Vikings. I mean, with their potential for that back and forth type of matchup, I think exists more so than whatever Daniel Jones can do against the Broncos. So I think I lean Penix just with that context of him being projected to lose.
My wife and I have been watching 1923, which is an awesome prequel to Yellowstone. And she was like, I like Harrison Ford so much. And she goes, that's my favorite thing, though, is Shrinking. And I was like, Star Wars? Han Solo? Come on, what are we doing? And he was great in Shrinking, too. He's great in everything. But yeah, I digress. ARAPP need 2 half-point of Ridley, Henderson, Mason. I think we already did this one. So my bad. Yeah. Whatever we said before. Michael, PPR, Pearsall or Pickens? Team Pickens?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll go with the Dallas bias.
There we go. Conrad King, Mark Andrews over Juwan Jennings as a flex. I would. Again, if we had Purdy, it'd be something else. I know week 1 wasn't great for Andrews. Only 19 pass attempts for Lamar. I understand the Browns might not necessarily bring out more, but come on. We still had, I know last season didn't end well or start well for Andrews, Chris, but that was still vintage Mark Andrews for the heavy majority. I'm going Mark here.
I guess the case that could be made that because Zay Flowers was doing so much all over the field and also mixing in for a couple of rushing attempts, that this was just going to be the Zay Flowers game and nobody else's game. Because it's not like we really saw a ton of production from Rashad Bateman or any of the other pass catchers. So I would say that in this game where they might have a little bit tougher of a time moving the ball, and also seeing as much as the Bengals were able to move the ball with Noah Fant catching the touchdown and seeing some of their, and also Mike Gesicki getting involved from a pass catching standpoint against the Browns defense, I guess there's a case to be made that Mark Andrews over Juwan Jennings makes some sense. So yeah, I'm with that.
From Jinx Me, who you guys rolling out in the flex full PPR? Jordan Mason, Dylan Sampson, A.O. Manor, or Fannin? Jordan Mason.
Yeah, Jordan Mason. I know people have been picking up Elick Aomaner off the waiver wire, seeing how much he was used alongside Calvin Ridley. But let's get to a point where we can trust the Tennessee Titans passing game before we're talking about starting a guy like Aomaner.
Couple quick, easy ones, which we always appreciate. Not that there's anything wrong with asking the easy start sit questions. Nadine, Swift or Jalen Warren? We are Team Swift. Andrew, non-PPR, Travis Hunter or Pickens, especially in non-PPR. We are going Pickens, starting Dak over T-Law in the same league. I do think he should be going with Dak there. From Johnny, Ridley, Odunze, or Jalen Warren? I'm Team Ridley here. Chris, you on the same page?
Yeah, I think it's Ridley. At close, you could potentially make a case for Jalen Warren without knowing scoring settings, especially if it was full point PPR. I might lean towards Warren, but I think it's either one of those two.
By the way, producer Matt wanted us to know that Star Wars still sucks. So disagree, Matt. Too early for that kind of slander. Come on.
We cannot be doing that.
TD1964CA, Pickens, Javonte Williams, or Kayshon Boutte in PPR flex. Oh, man. It probably is Javonte. I still like the Pickens ceiling higher. Do I really have Javonte Williams over Pickens? And I get it.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I think either one of the two Cowboys, I think it's for me. Just given the ceiling for Pickens, the floor for Javonte. I think Boutte has a combination or elements of both the floor, given his target share from week one, and also the potential ceiling if they wind up getting into some sort of shootout match if the Dolphins offense wakes up. But I really need to see it first out of Miami. And then also, frankly, out of the Patriots passing game, because Drake May was still kind of spraying the ball over the field a little bit just last week. So I think it's either one of the Cowboys.
I lean Pickens, but that is not shared among the consensus group. And yeah, per our consensus group, it is going to be Javonte Williams. So power in numbers, as always, we will go ahead and go with the Javonte Williams comp. DD pick 18, Hollywood or Hunter. Certainly, if again, one of these that's far closer in week 2 than I ever expected it to be this offseason. I do think I lean Hollywood Brown here, Chris. Again, not that Travis Hunter's debut was bad or anything, but Hollywood just tied for the freaking week lead in targets, man. We have no Worthy. We have no Rashee Rice. I mean, again, just a situation where if Hollywood's going to be seeing 12 plus targets, he's hard to keep on the bench. So full PPR, I lean Hollywood. How about you?
I think that's where Hollywood, it's not just the amount of targets he was earning from Patrick Mahomes, but where he was earning them from. He had around a 67% slot rate, and also his average depth of target fell to around 6 to 7 yards. I mean, this man is essentially playing the Rashee Rice role that we found so favorable for fantasy production last season. So if that's going to continue, especially to your point, without Worthy being on the field and Travis Kelce still trying to find some amount of juice in his legs, I think it has to be Hollywood. In a full PPR setting, I think it has to be Hollywood.
Sit one between Hollywood, Javonte, or Pollard. In this case, I think we are actually going to be sitting Hollywood, Chris. Again, just really tough to get these running backs looking at 15, 20 touches out of the lineup, particularly if it's not going to be a surefire top 15 wide receiver. From Aaron Rappaport, appreciate what you and your father do, man. Half point PPR, need 2 of Ridley, Henderson, Mason, Coleman. I think we've gotten this one before. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's not the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So what have we said before? Stone Cold, Scriber, pick 2, Waddle, Tracy, and Ridley. I think I'm going Tracy and Ridley. Again, when it's close, I don't want the Dolphin. I know we've given Waddle before, but yeah, we're going to go with Tracy and Ridley there. Yep. Eric B, pick 4 in full point PPR. Sutton, Marv, Abuka, for sure. Those are 3. Yep. Judy, QJ, and Devonta. I think I lean Devonta, Chris. I can see the Judy allure, though. What say you?
Yeah, I think Devonta's the one that has, out of that entire group, the highest ceiling. I would say also with a similar floor, because like we were talking earlier with Dallas Goedert being out for this game, we can see a scenario where Devonta Smith is earning the same level of targets or having the same target rate as a Jerry Jeudy, who would be the Browns wide receiver 1. And of course, they should both out-earn Quentin Johnson, who's still going to be behind Lad McConkey and Keenan Allen. So if I'm getting the same ceiling with also the same floor of targets, I think it's Devonta as that 4th guy.
Cody, Tyler Warren, or Njoku, definitely Tyler Warren. From Ryan, 12-team PPR, Amarian Hampton, Ricky Pearsall, Hollywood. We're Team Hampton, right?
Yeah, Team Hampton there. I think Hollywood or Pearsall, you could potentially try and duke it out between those two guys, but I think it's Hampton as the clear number 1.
I'm curious to see how much Najee's workload upticks, because they were saying he was on a pretty strict 12 to 15 snap count last week. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, still Hampton for
keep
now.
an eye on that for Najee Harris. Was that
yeah, love when that works out. Paul, standard, need 2 of Aaron Jones, Travis Hunter, Calvin Ridley. I'm leaning Jones and Ridley here, Chris. What say you?
Yeah, Jones and Ridley. I do like the idea of Hunter there just going up against the Bengals secondary, and we already talked
Yeah.
about that. So either one of those guys I think is fine, but I think it's Jones and Ridley at the start with Hunter as like the very close third.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. All right. MJK Null. Hey, fellas. Quentin Johnston or Rashid Shaheed, half point PPR? Good question, man. Let me see where I have these dudes. I got Shaheed 88th overall,
I think Johnston.
QJ 92nd. I have it same tier, separated by 4. I get just trusting Justin Herbert, though.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. I think that's
Yeah.
where I would lean a bit more to Johnson, even though he is essentially the Chargers wide receiver 3, and Shaheed still would earn maybe a couple more targets. I think the potential for more touchdowns lends itself more to Johnston.
Yeah. Okay, cool. From Joe, great day to be great. You're freaking right, man. Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, Dylan Sampson, or Michael Pittman in a half point PPR. I do not envy you for having to
Shoot.
make this one. Gosh, I think it's Charbs.
Yeah,
Just
I think it's
based
Sharp.
on what we saw in week 1, not saying it won't flip, but just Charbs. We got Judkins coming back to potentially complicate things for Sampson right now. Pittman going up against the Broncos, just not a situation we want to
Yeah.
get too greedy with there. Greg's complimenting the new era hats. We appreciate you hanging out, Greg. Jeremy, hit the like. Yeah, man, please do. We appreciate you guys.
Let's go.
Do you like Juwan Johnson or Harold Fannin better in guillotine? Guillotine, I do lean Juwan Johnson here. Again, that was kind of our waiver wire takeaway, me and Kendall every single Monday. It was like long term for the season. Okay, Harold Fannin, I get the upside allurement there, but just for week 2 and week 2 only, give us Juwan Johnson. From Tom, quarter point per carry. Those leagues always piss me off. 1 point per reception, Dylan Sampson or Isaiah Pacheco. I'm not confident in Pacheco even getting to 10 to 15 carries right now. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You team Sampson?
Yeah, I think that's where if it'd probably been almost any other RB2, I might have leaned to the non-Samson option here. But Pacheco, we talked about earlier, his utilization between him and Kareem Hunt, I just don't think that I would want to buy into that for week 2. So I think I'll go Samson here.
From Greg, again, do we trust Pete Carroll and Bowers to start? I am cautiously optimistic that it is going to be Bowers starting. Pick up Michael Mayer, though, if you can, though, guys.
Yes.
That'll, again, just really help things. Let's see. Standard from Montgomery Bell. Dixon, Sider, or QJ? What am I missing here?
Who's Sider?
I don't know. Pick whoever your heart tells you, man. I'm sorry. Joseph Lombardo, 4 point PPR, need 2. Keenan, Hampton, ETN, or Swift. I think it's Hampton and ETN.
Full point PPR, Hampton and ETN.
It's definitely between the running backs. If you wanted to go Swift, it's close, man.
Yeah, I think it's
Let's get producer Matt. Let's go ahead and see what the start sit tool is telling us with that one. Hampton, ETN, and Swift in full point PPR. Again, I know we have these guys pretty close. So, in these situations, we'll go ahead and let the numbers decide. Keenan, again, it was a great week 1, but I'm just not overly expecting to see, Herbert lighting up everyone for 300 plus and 3 touchdowns, but you never know as this goes on. So as we are getting our Xfinity start sit tool going with that one, here we go. Who is that? ETN?
Yeah.
Yep. ETN number 1, followed by DeAndre Swift, though. So again, Swift and Hampton is definitely a little bit closer. Definitely go with ETN. So good stuff there. Thank you, as always, to our lovely producer, Matt. Tua or Cam Ward in a 2 QB leagues. This is what happens when you wait for that second QB in Superflex, guys.
Yeah.
You get these very unfortunate questions going. I am leaning towards Tua, at least for a week. I'd like, again, Cam Ward's debut, honestly, if you watch back the film, like he made a lot of really good throws. Everyone else just let him down. Who say they're not going to keep letting him down, though? So I'm team Tua here.
Yeah, I think it's team 2. Let's give him one more week and let's see how he performs under, I would say, less pressure and also less, I would say, defensive, trickery from Lou Anarumo. That's what kind of slowed down the Dolphins passing game in week 1. So I'll give Tua one more chance.
Sports Machado, Sativa, or Indica. I'll go with Indica, but to each their own. J Funk, half PPR, Waddle, Judy, or Jennings. I think I lean Judy here. I think it's Judy. Chris?
Yeah, I think it's Judy. I mean, Waddle was still sitting around at 20%, even less than that, actually, 16, 17% target share just last week. Jennings having to play with Mac Jones. I think it's Judy going up against the Ravens secondary.
Javonte, Pickens, or Booty in PPR flex. Again, I think we are leaning towards Javonte there. If you need the
Yeah.
bigger boom, go ahead and go with Pickens. Hunter or Aaron Jones in full PPR. Definitely in full PPR. I think we're going Aaron.
Yeah, I think it's Aaron. I mean, Hunter's a close second, but I think it's still Aaron Jones.
An 18-team guillotine, Mooney or Ferguson in the flex. I'm going with Mooney.
Yeah, Mooney. Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm not expecting as much out of Ferguson. Even in that week 1 matchup where we didn't see a ton out of George Pickens, Ferguson really wasn't making any sort of crazy fantasy production. So if we're assuming more targets shift to Pickens, that's got to eat into whatever we would project for Ferguson, right?
Yeah. So Rich, full PPR, Andrews or Jawan. We are just team Andrews for now. If we see, again, what happened in week 1 again in week 2, I'll be okay making the flip. But for right now, still going with Mark Andrews. From Michael, Swift or Parasol in half PPR, we are going with DeAndre Swift. Choose 2, though, between Hollywood, Ridley, and a Dunze. I think he's got the order right. Hollywood and
Yeah,
Ridley.
I think it's the first 2. Yep.
The real Jay, cuz Mahomes or Herbert. I'm going Herbert, man. And it's just all the guys are banged up for KC. It's not an easy matchup. Team Herbert?
Yeah, and we just saw Mahomes essentially get beat up and smoked by this same Eagles defense about, 6-7 months ago. So with one less pass catcher available for Mahomes, I'll go Herbo.
Devonta Smith or Quentin Johnson. We are team Devonta Smith there. Chris wants to know best future stash, though, Ollie Gordon or DJ Giddens. I would actually lean Gordon because, again, as much as Giddens was the clear-cut backup, Tyler Goodson wasn't active out there. So I think it would be annoying, God forbid anything happened to Jonathan Taylor. From Kella's Jason, Sampson or Tillman in full PPR. I think we lean Tillman here, Chris, with Judkins coming back.
Yeah, and that's also where seeing the amount of air yards and how successful Tillman was last week against the Bengals secondary, I see a similar matchup against for him against Baltimore secondary. So I'd still say Tillman here.
Good day to have a good morning, gents. I love it, MZ. Ridley, Tillman, Odunze, or Tyler Warren. We have to sit one. So in full PPR, I'm definitely playing Ridley. I think Warren beats out Tillman or Odunze.
Yeah, I think you got the right. I think that's it. And
Who
sitting one
between Tillman and Odunze. Yeah,
I'll sit Odunze, but
it's tough.
That one's tough. Actually, I'll take that back. Let's sit Tillman here. Let's sit Tillman.
We're going to sit Tillman for a week. But again, this dude keeps putting up top 20 performances. Very well could be different as early as week 3. Just a few minutes left, guys. So we're going to be running through as many more of these as we can. We do appreciate all the questions as always. And again, please, if you guys can, fantasylife.com, fantasy football ranks, start, sit, till Xfinity. Really trying to, again, help you guys out even when we can't be here for you every step of the way. Dallas, Javonte, or Chicago. Okay, Dallas, Javonte Williams, or Chicago, DeAndre Swift in half. I would lean DeAndre Swift there, Chris, but it is close.
Yeah, and I guess I would almost go back to Javonte in this match just because of the potential. I would say potential split with Roshan coming back in this game. So that's where I lean a bit more towards Javonte, but I think it's close.
Make sure Jaden Blue is indeed inactive. It sounds like that's going to be the case. That could be another sort of tiebreaker scenario there. So good stuff by Chris. And just the game script sets up a little better for Javonte. So, okay, I'll cede the Chris there. Give us Javonte. Pick 2, Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Smith, or Pearsall. Marvin Pearsall. I think we've kind of gone through those.
Marvin Pearsall. Honestly, just for
actually, no. I'm sorry. No, yeah, Marvin Smith.
There we go. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. For ceiling outcomes, I would say it's Marvin Smith.
My bad, everyone. Waddle or Walker? I think we're Team Walker there.
Yeah, not Walker. Even with the battle between Sharps, I think it's Walker.
Dak, Lawrence, Stafford, Penix. I think I lean Dak there.
Yeah, Dak for sure.
Ingram, Pitts, or Fannin. We are slightly leaning Ingram. I'll tell you what, though. Kyle Pitts getting closer in that rearview mirror, man. Look good in week 1.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'm so back in. Yeah. Wings or pizza while watching the game, Chris, and half-point PPR.
Wings. Give me some wings, man. Yeah. Sauce them things
up. Why not both, though? Why not both? It's 2025. Sure. Full PPR, flex, start 1, Ridley, Pickens, or Javonte Williams. I think it's Javonte.
Yeah, still Javonte.
Yeah. Yeah. Libby Jam said both, pizza and wings. That's what I'm talking about.
With a Kona on the side.
Amen to that. Is Hunter ranked too low this week versus the Bengals in the high scoring game? I see the point with it, but I'm not totally sold on Trevor Lawrence yet. And Travis Hunter, man, last week, as much as he got those 8 targets, wasn't making too much with it. Very low ADOT. I've seen some pretty funny, the Jaguars picked Wan'Dale Robinson, that second overall tweets out there. So I'm sure there will be bigger and better days ahead. But again, just versus some other good quality options, man, just not a must start in my humble opinion. Travion over Jalen Warren.
Yep.
Stephon Diggs over Quentin Johnston. Bryce Young, Mac Jones, or spend 2 hours on the tarmac in Atlanta with no service.
I would say spend 2 hours on the tarmac in Atlanta with no service, because those are dire straits, brother. Between those two, I'd say let's go Mac Jones. I mean, if the rumors are true, Kyle Shanahan has been waiting to coach Mac Jones in an NFL game for quite some time now, if we're being honest. So I'd say Mac Jones out of the two, because Mac Jones looked serviceable in Jacksonville last year. And now he also still has I would say a progressive play caller in Kyle Shanahan pulling the strings there. A lesser passing or lesser weapons now, especially with George Kittle being out. But I'll give the edge to Mac Jones.
I lean Bryce just because he runs more. But again, I think our first answer about the tarmac probably holds the most true. Tyrone Tracy, Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet. I think I'll go Tracy, Chris, because again, as bad as week 1 turned out for him, it did suck. Like, he did have the usage to suggest that better, RB2 to RB1, level booms could be on the way.
Yeah, and his competition for touches in Cam Scatterbo, negative yards to start his career, not so great. So let's see if that split leans more in Tracy's favor in week 2.
Eric, I think your roster is good. Do not worry about starting QJ or Judy instead. Dan, Jawan or Fannin. Again, we have gone with Jawan there. Go Jags, Duval, Libby Jam, Duval. Defo, Sampson, Booty, or Jordan Mason. Jordan Mason for us there. Again, very good spot, and just knowing what we know. Pearsall or Swift. Go ahead and give us Swift. Mason Walker or Montgomery. Again, this is kind of tough because Monty's in a similar spot as Mason. I've kind of been comping Mason to a cheaper version of Montgomery, and now here we are in week 2 having to make that very decision. So I think I would give Monty the benefit of the doubt, Chris. It is close, though. Definitely over Kenneth Walker, who was the third choice.
Yeah, and he was still around, I think it was maybe a 6-ish% target share, so around the same amount of targets that Jordan Mason got in week 1, while still having the lion's share, pun intended, of Detroit's backfield. So I'll lean Montgomery for this week, just hoping that the Lions offense looks a little bit better in week 2 than they did in their season opener.
Last one from Chad, half point PPR flex. Sampson, Jordan Mason, or Keon Coleman. I think I'm Jordan Mason there.
Yeah, unless you came out of TNF behind, I would say I would go Keon Coleman if you're behind in your matchup and you're swinging for the fences. But if all things are equal and you're just looking for a floored play, it's Jordan Mason.
And with that, guys, going to wrap up week 2 start sit hour. Again, Chris and I will be back each and every Sunday throughout the season. Invite you guys to get in here early, get those questions in, and we will get to them. Again, tough to get to every single one. That is why we invite you to go check out the rankings at fantasylife.com, Xfinity start sit tool to, again, get everything to your heart's desire. Good luck. May the fantasy gods ever work in your